Shadows, the horror movie heroes, by Clouds. Read by Distracted by Books. Chapter 13, Rush. Mom smiled as the clock struck noon, the exact time that the heroes were set to arrive in the fake city. Okay, Sparky, it's go time. They jumped off the roof and Danky looked over to see the rival group of villains they'd seen earlier doing the same thing. Mom grinned. I'll take care of these guys. You go in and hold up the cashier. Danky gulped. What? Just use your electricity and threaten them a little bit. Mom shrugged, her own hand coated in electricity. It's just like in the movies. I believe in you. Danky exhaled slowly. Oh, okay then. Good luck. Mom smiled. You too, Smarky. Knock him dead. Danky gave a jerky nod of affirmation and ran through the glass doors of the bank, his entire body sparking. This is a robbery! Give me all your money! He winced at how stupid he sounded, but the teller leapt into action and started shoveling the money from the register into a little bag. They probably knew they'd get robbed in the first few minutes. Once the money was in the bag, the teller tied the bag shut with a ribbon, and Danky noticed a little badge hanging off of it. It was around the size of his hand and emblazoned with a large number 8. That must be how they identified the objectives. The teller shoved the bag onto the counter. Just take it. Don't hurt us. Did you get the money, Sparky? Mom came bounding through the door and her eyes zeroed in on the bag of cash. Good work. Yeah. Danky nodded and gave her a thumbs up as she grabbed the cash. Easy as pie. Good. She looked out the window as there was a giant crash down the street. Now for the hard part. The heroes are here. Kyoka largely ignored the heroes as she made her way around the city, her villain token firmly hidden in her pocket. She still couldn't figure out what had happened back at that cafe. How had she even done that? She'd never been able to control others using her heartbeat before, so it must be a new development because of One for All. She'd thought that it was supposed to make her punch stronger, but apparently it had manifested in a different way than it had in All Might. She took a deep breath and ducked into an alley as a group of heroes ran past her. She wasn't too worried about the actual objectives at the moment. She had her own objectives to complete, namely, figuring out this new ability before she actually had to fight anyone with it. She should get some portable speakers, but she'd have to find a place that didn't ask for her token, or she'd have to steal them. Kyoka huffed. Of course she'd have to steal them. Speakers, however, weren't always very subtle. If she was projecting her heartbeat, there was a chance the heroes would be able to block her influence with earplugs. If she could figure out a way to do it quietly, then she might be able to get what she needed without actually fighting for it. She waited until the heroes were out of sight before stepping out of the shadows and walking up to the nearest civilian, an older woman who seemed nice, but also seemed like someone Kyoka could overpower in the case of an emergency. Unless she took after Recovery Girl, in which case it would have been a good run. She jogged up to the woman and focused on calming her own heartbeat. Hello, how are you? Oh, I'm fine, sweetie. How are you? The woman smiled, but she didn't have that blank quality the people in the cafe had had. So Kyoka assumed she was just choosing to be nice, not being forced into calmness by her quirk. She'd have to try something else. I'm fine. Kyoka slowly snaked one of her earphones over and jabbed it into the woman's arm, immediately focusing on projecting a calming heartbeat. I need your help with something. The woman struggled for a moment, but calmed down almost immediately, her eyes taking on the blank quality. That meant her emotions were now under Kyoka's control. Of course, sweetie. What can I help you with? Kyoka swallowed thickly and looked around. Actually, that'll be everything. Thanks. She unplugged and ran. The woman sat there dazed for a few seconds before letting out a blood-curdling scream. Villain! It's a villain! Where are the heroes? Oh, crap. Kyoka rushed down an alley and focused on stealth and keeping to the shadows as she hurried away. Okay, so that worked. ish. Now to find an electronics shop. Nejire was feeling a lot of emotions right now, but most of all, she was excited. Sure, Tamaki might be nervous about fighting the fake villains, and Mirio was concerned about stopping as many villains as possible, but Nejire was mostly thinking about how exciting this all was. They fought villains during their work studies, of course, but never all together as a class. So all she could think was how much fun this was going to be. Their class was an interesting mix. Aizawa had expelled a lot of them during their first year, or at least demoted them to general studies, so they'd ended up with some transfer students from other schools or from different departments. As long as they had the determination to be true heroes, Aizawa could work with them. But if they didn't, well, Nejire was just happy that she and her friends had made the cut. Their class president had taken charge and sent half of them to protect an objective right from the start, while the other half had gone to the fake hero agency to get everything set up. Nejire and her boys had gotten sent to the museum, and she and Amajiki had both been hoping that they'd have some time to browse through the exhibits first. But no luck. As soon as they'd arrived, the alarms had started going off, and Mirio had had to phase through the wall in order to stop two villains who were trying to steal a vase. Nejire and Tamaki had caught up to him quickly, of course, but by that time, Mirio had already managed to corner the two against a wall. They took their places on either side of him and got into battle stances. The two men, who were similar enough that they could be brothers, looked at each other, and one of them grimaced. "We're going to have to run, aren't we, Ichiro?" "Yeah, Jiro, we are," Ichiro sighed. "We're not allowed to use trigger in this exercise, so there's no way we'll be able to lift this huge thing after we activate our quirks." "What are you talking about?" Mirio smiled. "Aren't you here to give us a fight?" Ichiro laughed. "No way! We're just here to annoy Eraser and make sure he doesn't forget about us." "Yeah," Jiro laughed. "Here, catch!" Tamaki barely managed to transform one arm into a tentacle and catch the vase before it shattered. When Nejire looked back toward the villains, they were gone, and the only things she could see in their place were two little grasshoppers running on two legs. "Eat our dust!" one of them screamed in a high-pitched voice. "Hot to jump!" They both jumped over the heroes' heads and were out the door before Nejire could even wrap her head around their quirks. They would never be able to keep track of something so small long enough to give chase. Tamaki sighed. "Well, at least we got the vase." "But I wanted to catch them," Nejire pouted. "What even is this thing anyway?" It looked like any fancy terracotta vase, but instead of a scene from mythology painted on it, it was a giant number 2. Nejire smiled as she remembered what Power Loader had told them about each of the objectives having a number. "So we just need to protect this from the other villains." Mirio nodded. "Yeah, we can take it back to the agency so it can be better defended. It's definitely the second objective. How many were there again?" "For the villains, 13. Tamaki shuddered. "But they get extra credit for any heroes they kill." Mirio grinned. "Well then, we just won't let them kill us." End of chapter.